Hello, welcome to Flowers for Algernon Day 3 reading. We are going to start with a little review of what we read on Day 2. So Day 2 was after Charlie had the surgery and how he was progressing. So Charlie decided to go back to work. He works at a plastic box factory. So we got to see what it was like for him at work and how he was treated by his coworkers and friends. Not always the greatest treatment. Speaking of Charlie's friends, he went out with them and they kind of sent him away at one point. They got him drunk and then they sent him away to get a newspaper and then they ditched him. So he had to be brought home by a policeman. So they're not always treating him super well and they basically associate him with being dumb and they use that as a joke. They love making fun of him. Charlie has started to improve. He's started to learn more and be able to retain knowledge faster. And the big thing at the end of the section is that Charlie beat Algernon in the race, and he was very excited. He also learned a little bit about Algernon's life and how he has to do a puzzle to earn food and whatnot. So that's the Day 2, and now we're going to go on to Day 3, starting with April 9th. Tonight after work, Miss Kinnian was at the laboratory. She looked like she was glad to see me, but scared. I told her, "Don't worry, Miss Kinnian, I'm not smart yet," and she laughed. She said, "I have confidence in you, Charlie, the way you struggled so hard to read and write better than all the others. At worst, you will have it for a little while, and you're doing something for science." We are reading a very hard book. It's called Robinson Crusoe, and here's a picture of it. It's about a man who gets marooned on a desert island. He is smart and figures out all kinds of things so he can have a house and food. And he's a good swimmer. Only I feel sorry because he's all alone and has no friends. But I think there must be somebody else on the island because there's a picture with his funny umbrella looking at footprints. I hope he gets a friend and not be lonely. And something to pause and think about here is that Charlie focuses a lot on being lonely, wanting people to not be lonely, wanting himself not to be lonely, and having friends. So that's going to be a reoccurring theme as we read the book. Progress report 10, or progress report for April 10th. Miss Kinnian teaches me to spell better. Yeah. She says, "Look at a word and close your eyes and say it over and over until you remember." I have lots of trouble with through, that you say through, and enough and tough that you don't say a new and two, you say enough and tough. That's how I used to write it before I started to get smart. I'm confused, but Miss Kinnian says there's no reasons in spelling. April 14th. We finished Robinson Crusoe. I want to find out more about what happens to him, but Miss Kinnian says that's all there is. Why? And here's a picture of the first page of Robinson Crusoe, and I'm going to read the second sentence out loud to you. Robinson had early wandering thoughts and could not be prevailed on to settle in business, but was desirous of going to sea, which gave his parents much trouble. He hardened himself in his dutiful course, etc., and so forth. So when you think of the language that Charlie is reading in this book, you can tell that he's starting to get smarter because that's stuff that takes me a little second to translate when I'm reading in my head. April 15th. Miss Kinnian says I'm learning fast. She read some of the progress reports and she looked at me kind of funny. She says I'm a fine person and I will show them all. I asked her why. She said, "Never mind, but I shouldn't feel bad if I find out that everybody isn't as nice as I think they are." She said, "For a person who God gave so little to, you've done more than a lot of people with brains they never even used." I said, "All my friends are smart people, but they're good. They like me and they never did anything that wasn't nice." Then she got something in her eye and she had to run out to the ladies' room. I don't think Miss Kinnian got something in her eye. She's feeling a little sad because Charlie just believes that his friends are such good people and they're treating him well, and she's worried that he's going to be sad when he finds out the truth. April 16th. Today I learned the comma. This is a comma, a period with a tail. Miss Kinnian says it's important because it makes writing better, she said. Somebody could lose a lot of money if a comma isn't in the right place. I don't have any money, and I don't see how a comma keeps you from losing it. So I read that weird because look at how Charlie wrote it. He's got all sorts of commas all over the place. When Miss Kinney is talking about putting a comma in the wrong place, losing money, she's referring to money. So like if you look at $10,000, if they put the comma in the wrong place, would change it. April 17th. I used the comma wrong. It's punctuation. Miss Kenyon told me to look up long words in the dictionary and to learn to spell them. I said, what's the difference if you can read it anyway? She said, it's part of your education. So now, from now on, I'll look up all the words I'm not sure how to spell. It takes a long time to write that way, but I only have to look them up once, and after that I get it right. So think about that. He used to have a bad memory for spelling. Now he looks it up one time and remembers it the whole time after that. So for punctuation, he says, you got them mixed up. She showed me how to mix them, and now I can mix up all kinds of punctuation in my writing. There are lots of rules to learn, but I'm getting them in my head. One thing I like about dear Miss Kenyon, that's the way it goes in a business letter if I ever go into business, is she always gives me a reason when I ask. She's a genius. Yes. I wish I could be smart like her. Punctuation is fun. And look at how Charlie wrote that. Look at all that crazy punctuation there. So he is just starting to experiment with those kinds of things. April 18th. What a dope I am. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. I read the grammar book last night, and it explains the whole thing. When I saw it, it was the same way as Miss Kenyon was trying to tell me, but I didn't get it. Miss Kenyon said that the TV working in my sleep helped out. She and I reached a plateau. That's a flat hill. So that means that Charlie has increased in his intelligence pretty rapidly, pretty quickly, and now he's kind of leveling off, and they need to take him to the next level. So they have a plan for that, which we'll hear about today. After I figured out how punctuation worked, I read over all my old progress reports from the beginning. Boy, did I have crazy spelling and punctuation. I told Miss Kenyon I ought to go over the pages and fix all the mistakes, but she said, no, Charlie, Dr. Niemer wants them just as they are. That's why he let you keep them after they were post-stated. It's like kind of a old-fashioned photocopying. To see your own progress. You're coming along fast, Charlie. That made me feel good. After the lesson, I went down and played with Algernon. We don't race anymore. April 20th. I feel sick inside. Not sick like for a doctor, but inside my chest it feels empty, like getting punched, and a heartburn at the same time. I wasn't going to write about it, but I guess I got to because it's important. Today was the first time I ever stayed home from work. Last night, Joe Carp and Frank Riley invited me to a party. There were lots of girls and some men from the factory. I remembered how sick I got last time I drank too much, so I told Joe I didn't want anything to drink. He gave me a plain Coke instead. We had a lot of fun for a while. Joe said I should dance with Ellen and she would teach me the steps. I fell a few times and I couldn't understand why because no one else was dancing besides Ellen and me. And then I realized all the time I was tripping because somebody's foot was always sticking out. And when I got up at the end, I saw the look on Joe's face and it gave me a funny feeling in my stomach. He's a scream, one of the girls said. Everybody was laughing. Look at him, he's blushing. Charlie's blushing. Hey, Ellen, what'd you do to Charlie? I never saw him act like that before. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. Everybody was looking at me and laughing, and I felt naked. I wanted to hide. I ran outside and I threw up. Then I walked home. It's a funny thing. I never knew that Joe and Frank and the others liked to have me around all the time just to make fun of me. Now I know what it means to pull a Charlie Gordon. I'm ashamed. The important thing I want you to think about here is that Charlie just found out that his friends weren't actually his friends. They weren't being nice to him. They used him as kind of like entertainment to make fun of him. And his reaction is to feel ashamed. So I want you to think about that. Is that the correct reaction? Should he feel angry? Why is he ashamed of himself in this scenario? Progress Report 11, April 21st. Still didn't go into the factory. I told Mrs. Flynn, my landlady, to call and tell Mr. Donegan I was sick. Mrs. Flynn looks at me very funny lately, like she's scared. No wonder. I mean, he's talking really differently. He's a totally different person. I think it's a good thing about me finding out how everyone laughs at me. I thought about it a lot. It's because I'm so dumb and I don't even know when I'm doing something dumb. People think it's funny when a dumb person can't do things the same way they can. Anyway, I know I'm getting smarter every day. I know punctuation and I can spell good. I like to look up all the hard words in the dictionary and I remember them. I'm reading a lot now, and Miss Kenyon says I read very fast. Sometimes I even understand what I'm reading about, and it stays in my mind. There are times when I can close my eyes and think of a page and it all comes back like a picture. Besides history, geography, and arithmetic, Miss Kenyon says I should start to learn foreign languages. Dr. Strauss gave me some more tapes to play while I sleep. I still don't understand how that conscious and unconscious mind works, but Dr. Strauss says not to worry yet. He asked me to promise that when I start learning college subjects next week, I wouldn't read any books on psychology. That is, until he gives me permission. So guys, Charlie's going to start college next week. If you think about that, that's a hugely fast progression. It's less than 6 weeks since his surgery, and he's already kind of graduated onto college material. I felt a lot better today, but I guess I'm still a little angry at all the time people were laughing and making fun of me because I wasn't so smart. When I become intelligent, like Dr. Strauss says, with 3 times my IQ of 68, then maybe I'll be like everyone else and people will like me. Let's pause here and think about your bell ringer when you were reading about IQ. 3 times 68 is 204. So that's an incredibly high Q. Stephen Hawking, who's known for being super intelligent, especially about science, has an IQ of 160. So will Charlie be like everyone when his IQ is that high? Or will he be different from them? Or will he be able to just kind of blend in? Something to predict in your head. I'm not sure what an IQ is. Dr. Niemer said it was something that measured how intelligent you were, like a scale in the drugstore weighs pounds. But Dr. Strauss had a big argument with him and said an IQ didn't weigh intelligence at all. He said IQ showed how much intelligence you could get. Like the numbers on the outside of the measuring cup. You still had to fill that cup up with stuff. Then, when I asked Bert, who gives me my intelligence test and works with Algernon, he said both of them were wrong. Only I had to promise not to tell them he said so. Bert says that the IQ measures a lot of different things, including some of the things you learned already, and it really actually isn't any good at all. So I still don't know what an IQ is, except that mine is going to be over 200 soon. I didn't want to say anything, but I don't see how, if they don't know what it is or where it is, I don't see how they know how much of it you've got. Dr. Niemer says I have to take a Rorschach test tomorrow. I wonder what that is. And that means Charlie's going to be looking at the ink blots again, which we know, but he doesn't even associate it with what he did before because in his mind he called that the raw shock, and he just was really overwhelmed by everything that was happening to him then. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds to the ink blots this time and if he can see images in the ink blots like we were doing for the bell ringer a couple days ago. And that concludes the end of day 3 reading. Thank you for listening.